All right, hey everybody, I'm francapitanelli. Just wanted to check in today and tell a little story about the time I met Steve Vai, the one and only guitar legend Steve Vai. And if you don't know who Steve Vai is, he started out playing with Frank Zappa. I guess he started out transcribing music for Zappa, and then Zappa asked him to join his band, and he became like the hotshot guitar player in the band. And then he went on to join David Lee Roth and did the Eatemandsmile record, as well as Skyscraper, and eventually he ended up in Whitesnake. And he's got a bunch of great solo albums, most notably the first two, Flexible and Passion and Warfare. And then somewhere in there, he played on a Public Image Limited album, the generic one, which also has Ginger Baker on drums and is produced by Bill Laswell. And that is such a great album. I love that album. But mostly, he's just an amazing guitar player that always turns up in places showing off his skills that he has honed immaculately. So, I was working at a record store for many years here in Atlanta, Georgia, called Criminal Records. Some of you may know it, maybe even remember me working there. And the record store had like a high counter. We used to stand elevated above the customers. Of course, you want that at a record store where the employees seem like they're a little bit elevated. So their cynicism can cut you even deeper, which of course I was very guilty of. And hopefully I'm forgiven. I've made a lot of amends for that. So I'm working, and it's a weekday in the morning, I don't know, somewhere between 10 and 11 o'clock, and Steve Vai comes walking in, and I spotted him. It took me a second, a couple looks to kind of, is that him? Yeah, I think that's him. Then he got a phone call, and he walked over towards, there was like a magazine section, and he got in this crouching position that I had seen him before in at a show with David Lee Roth, because I saw him twice with David Lee Roth on the Eatemandsmile tour at the LA Forum, 2 nights in a row. It was right before Christmas. Cinderella opened up, and they had just come out with Shake Me and other big hit that's on that record, Somebody Save Me. I love Tom Kiefer. I see him over by the magazine section, and he's in this crouched position, not unlike the one that I had seen him with playing with David Lee Roth. And those shows were really good. It was David Lee Roth's first shows in LA after he left Van Halen. So yeah, these shows, they were kind of a big deal because it's Dave's first shows back in LA without Van Halen. And Steve Vai is like the only guy that I could think of that could fit into Eddie's shoes and pull it off. I can't think of anybody else from that time that could do that I know of. So they really poured it on heavy for these shows. And at the second show, there were 2 nights in a row, Friday and Saturday. The second show, when they came out to do the encore, the mains, the house speakers went out during Jump. And they were playing the song, and nobody could hear what was going on because the house speakers went out in like the first 10 seconds of the song, but you could tell that they could still hear it in the monitors. And they kept going with the song like the pros that they are, but they realized like what was going on. And Dave put a stop to it, and they went off stage, and you could hear Dave yelling through the monitors, "Hang on everybody, we're about to get it rolling again, here we go." And eventually they get the mains to come back on, and they restart Jump and do it in its entirety again so we could all hear it. But, you know, it was like a big deal of those shows, a lot of pressure for this homecoming. Steve Vai and Billy Sheehan, they would square off in these kind of like one-upmanship guitar offs with a guitar and a bass, a guitar off. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It would be very much appreciated. When I saw him in this crouching position, that's when I knew, oh yeah, that's him. That's got to be him. He's stretching out while he's on the phone. So he gets off the phone, and as I was standing up behind the counter, we had all these CDs that were the new releases that went along this counter. And he started making his way down the counter looking at all the new releases. So I was standing above him and his head was right about here. I said probably the stupidest thing you could say to somebody, or one of the stupidest, which was,
"Is your name Steve?"
And he looked at me kind of like with this air of, here we go. And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Man, I really love your guitar playing on the song The Dangerous Kitchen from the Frank Zappa album, The Man from Utopia." And he instantly was disarmed and was like, "Oh, I love that. That's great. That was such a cool song. What a bitch to try and pull that off." So if you're not familiar with the song, Zappa is telling a story about the dangerous kitchen. The dangerous kitchen, if it ain't one thing, it's another. In the middle of the night when you get home, the bread things are all dry and scratchy. And he goes through the litany of food rotting in the kitchen. But the genius of the guitar part is that it follows his every breath of telling this story. Every intonation of Frank Zappa's voice is covered by Steve Vai with his guitar. He's mimicking his voice the whole way through. And I don't know if you ever tried to do that. I haven't, because it's too hard. It's really hard. There's all these notes that your voice hits that are in between notes on the guitar or the piano per se. So you're having to find these in-between notes to match inflections of a voice. And man, he just did it impeccably. It goes through the whole song. And he does the same thing on the Jazz Discharge Party Hats, which is on the same album, and a similar kind of Zappa rant where he's telling a story about some wacky hijinks that took place after a show, I believe in Albuquerque. As I mentioned it to Steve Vai, it immediately opened up this shell of, yeah, I'm Steve Vai, into, oh, I loved playing that. When they remixed the album, they put my guitar part too low, and he had some complaints about the remixed version. And he's like, "Hey, I'm playing tonight at the Tabernacle. It's the G3 tour. It's me, Satriani, and Petrucci. Do you want to come?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course. I would love to come." So I wrote down my name and I gave it to him. And he put me on the list. And my buddy Adam and I went down to the show at the Tabernacle. And I was working that day, so I missed Petrucci, and I think we caught the very tail end of Joe Satriani, but we were able to see the entire Steve Vai show, which was amazing. And he had the fans blowing, his hair was just blowing in the wind at the front of the stage, and they killed it. In fact, where's my little box? I was trying to convey to a person that I was working with that was indeed Steve Vai, and I wrote this little note. Where is it? Here it is. Oh, I just ripped something, one of my collectibles. All right, here's the note I wrote. Can you see that? It says, "That's Steve Vai." And I put it on the counter to show my coworker, who was not as excited about it as I was. But this stayed on my refrigerator for many years. Now it stays in a locked box with all my little knickknacks and autographs, stuff. What else about Steve Vai, Fran? The song Little Green Men. Woo! That is a barn burner. And there you have it. That was the time I met Steve Vai. He was super nice. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate you inviting me to the show. And as I recall, it was an amazing show. If you don't know Steve Vai's music, you should check out his solo album, Flexable, which is kind of in between when he played with Frank Zappa and with David Lee Roth. that album is really good. It's kind of Zappa-esque. You can tell he's been playing with Zappa for a while. And as far as the Zappa albums, The Man from Utopia and Ship Arriving Too Late to Save a Drowning Witch. And then, of course, the David Lee Roth album, Eatemandsmile, is just fabulous. The guitar playing is really, really good. I never got Skyscraper. I kind of trailed off at that point. My name's Francapitanelli, Totally Into the Sound. Check out my music at totallyintothesound.com, where I have my latest release, Totally Into the Sound, Tits for the Bee Gees, my metalized interpretations of the Bee Gees songs. And if you want something a little less crazy, you got Frank Capitanelli's Cave Talk, of course, all the Tom Collins records. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And we'll catch you next time. Peace.